to Echoes in the Bone. On this episode, we feature Ronnie Burke, director of Synergy Productions and the creators of one of the most famous festivals in the world, Reggae Sunsplash.
Ronnie, welcome.
Thank you, sir, for having me here. My pleasure.
It's great to have you. We're going to talk about something special to me and something special to you.
Sounds familiar.
Reggae Sunsplash.
Yes.
Tell us about Reggae Sunsplash, how it all started.
Well, that was 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I really have to give Tony Johnson the credit as the driving force behind Reggae Sunsplash. Tony and Don returned from long stints in the United States. Tony was in California for 17 years. Mm-hmm. Don Green was in New York for 10. And they just happened they knew each other. They came home around about the same time. Tony was brought in by the UDC because he was an expert urban planner with high accolades from the government in LA. Mm-hmm. So he came down to work with the UDC. Don was working with the National Housing Trust. I had jumped ship from being a life insurance man for nearly 10 years. And joined my friend Mike Johnson formed this record company called Micron Music. And we were, even from then, concentrating 100% on Jamaican music. Micron was about Jamaican music. So these guys came home. John Wakelin was my neighbor and probably my best friend. Was at JBC. So these guys came home and we used to meet at a little place called Cafe Datique on Oxford Road. I remember Tom McCoy's Talent Corporation was in the back. Mm-hmm. And it was a very arty, hip kind of place. So we used to meet and have lunch, and I would endure an hour of cussing from Tony and Don. Mm-hmm. Very upset that they would come in from America, where they had a choice of reggae shows on a Friday or a Saturday night, to come home to Jamaica, to the home of reggae, and find it difficult to find even a single concert to attend. Mm-hmm. And their view was, correctly, that Jamaica doesn't understand what it has in its original music. They don't understand the impact of this music outside of Jamaica. It's like we're all here sitting around the local table without even looking through the window. And he said Tony's thing was reggae music is a resource. It's a tourism tool. Mm-hmm. It's a source of income that's being totally ignored. So among his assignments was the Ocherios area, and Tony convinced the UDC to build a stage on the beach adjoining where the cruise ships come in order to prove that we could provide local entertainment for tourists. Sadly, unfortunately, he had a motor accident on the way to that show, lost one of his eyes. And one would think that an accident like that and the loss of an eye would slow Tony down or even stop him. Not at all. He went back and he kept preaching about the value that's not being appreciated or utilized in our music and our culture generally, So Beryl Francis was also at the UDC. She left and joined Peter Martin Associates, who were the PR people for the tourist board. And they had a big problem. Jamaica had no summer tourism. Hotels were, when winter season ended, hotels were shut down, refurbished, staff was laid off, all activities ceased. And their problem was, how can we solve this gap in our tourism? How can we become an all-year destination? And they struck on the idea that music would have been the main attraction. And so they thought about copying something that was going on in Nassau at the time called a Singles Week, where they discounted the hotels, discounted the airfares, and students, mostly young people, would come down and party for a week and fill their gap. And so Jamaica wanted to go in that direction. So Bird approached Tommy Cowan, liked the idea, but thought that he wouldn't be interested in doing it unless it was funded. He wasn't willing to find the funds to do it and take that risk. She went to Ed Wallace with the same proposal, and Ed said the same thing. And then she remembered her office friend, Tony Johnson, the fanatic. And she went to Tony, and he didn't blink. He said, "We will do it." And so Tony called in Don, John, and myself, Maxine Walters, and formed this company called Synergy Productions. And we spent days and nights planning what was at that time an 8-day festival. 2 beach parties, 5 nights of concerts, disco after each show. Crazy. And we made this presentation to Peter Martin, and they were interested. The tourist board, headed by Desmond Henry, who was a bit cautious. Who really came through for us was Barbara Glidon. She was a believer. And so we pressed forward and finally got an approval for the plan that we had laid out. And the format was that the tourist board felt confident that they could bring in 2,000 visitors. We would put on this festival of music and cultural events, and out of the package, Synergy would receive $70 US per person. And this was the basis of our finance, because we never really had any money.
Yeah.
We were just a fire with the love of the music and the idea.
Yeah.
And so we went to the bank with this proposal. Had to put up some hard assets. Tony and Don had really expensive vehicles they had brought in with them, put them up, and went forward with the planning of Sunsplash. Dennis, let me tell you this. When we look back at what we started with and what we planned, we now wonder if we had gone crazy. You're talking about no generators, no standby generators,
Yes.
no handheld radios,
Yes.
no stage,
No rig.
no PA, nothing.
Yes.
It is some heroes. Mr. Carter from Ward Theatre
Yeah.
brought on the lights from Ward to do what he could. Borrowed a piece of the stage from the JDF and a piece from the JCDC, put them together. Audio Fund, who remains one of my personal heroes, because what he undertook was way beyond what Paul Dowd had ever tried, but he was not a man to turn on a challenge. So, and John Waken was the production person. Bear in mind, none of us had ever done a concert. You know?
Yeah.
Because of my Micron background and my familiarity with virtually all the artists, I was the one who, along with the guys, put together the nightly entertainment packages. We had no sponsor. And in fact, D&G gave us about 50 cases of red stripe beer, which they dumped on the field and drove off. We had nowhere to store them in Gerard Park, because Gerard Park was the only possible venue. It was so unsuitable. It had like 4 toilets.
Yeah.
It had 6-foot walls. It had virtually no facilities, and they were very tough on us. I mean, the people who controlled Gerard Park, the parish council, had what they call a guild club in there, which was quite a nice building, and they denied us use of it. And in fact, insisted that their members would pay half price. And we had to bow to that in order to get Jared Park.
Yeah.
To back up a bit, when the idea came together, we came down to Montego Bay and made a presentation to the parish council. Entirely out. Fire, police, medical, you name it. Big meeting. And we presented the idea. Well, this is what we're going to do, a festival of music. And then can you believe that the mayor came out with a prepared list of 18 areas of disbursement of the profits of Sunsplash, which had not yet taken place, and which they didn't even give us Jared Park.
Mm-hmm.
No support at all.
Mm-hmm.
But this demand for fix this, fix that, bush this, bush that, all of this was coming out of our profits.
Yeah.
And Tony was a man who didn't take much prisoners, went berserk. Tony took the microphone and really and truly put everybody in their place.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think in the 18 years we were in Montego Bay, we ever overcame that confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
Because our label became them boy from Kingston. And remained so for our entire stay there.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, back to the festival. We stumbled through it. We could never have done Sunsplash without the instant acceptance and recognition of where it could go from the artists.
Mm-hmm.
That was the easiest part of the whole project.
Do you remember the lineup for the first Sunsplash?
I remember that Jimmy Cliff was the headline act.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that we had a reunited Heptones, Toots, Jacob Miller, in a circle band rather.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember beyond that. I remember though that during Jacob's performance, when he was singing Them Get a Big Stripe for Lock Up Rastafari, he bent over the stage and plucked a helmet off a policeman and put on his locks and lit up a massive spliff. And the police response was to march through the gates and leave the venue.
Okay.
And declare that it would not happen again. This was the end of the festival.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a big emergency meeting at the tourist board the next morning, and eventually, grudgingly, we promised that would never happen again.
Yes.
They apologized, and so we got it back together. And so somehow we stumbled through, and we delivered all that we had advertised. Not smooth, a lot of hitches, lots of crises, lots of panics, but we delivered it.
That was 77 or 78?
78.
78,
Yeah.
yeah.
And at the end of that time, if we thought we were broke before, we were really broke now. We cleaned out all our resources. Banks sold the vehicles. Creditors were coming everywhere. And we had no idea where we could go from there. We didn't know what next to do. And then, because when I was at Micron, we used to sell Not a Dread album for Bob Marley. We did an exceptional job of it. We sold 25,000 copies of that album in 77 or so. So I would go to 56 every now and again. And one day I went up there and Bob was sitting on that tree and he said, "Come here." And he said, "I see your poster say you have the biggest reggae festival in the history of the world," which it did. I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, that's a lie." So, why is it a lie? He said, "Because me never upon it."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, boy, Bob, let me tell you the truth. The first artist I tried to get was you. I went to Don Taylor and you would have nothing to do with it." He said, "No, man, me like that, me like what you're doing." I like where that can go. So you tell Mr. Taylor, say, me, Bob Marley, say, me do it. And then he said, I'll do it for 10,000 Jamaican dollars. I went to Taylor, said, look. He said, well, no, it can't be 10. It's 15. Both grab it. The minute we had Bob Marley to present in Montego Bay, everything changed. Tourist board came alive again. I should tell you that of the 2,000 visitors at $70 that we were to get, they delivered 23. Hence our bankruptcy. But everything came alive again. And the response was just incredible. Because instantly the hotels were booked out. The villas were booked out. Negril was booked out. Falmouth was booked out. Discovery Bay was booked out. It was chaotic. The poor hotels now, having anticipated closing down, had no supplies. The road was chocked with Grace Kennedy trucks and D&G trucks, and in a panic to restock. Because Montego Bay really wasn't ready for or expect this.
Yeah.
People were sleeping in the airport in Miami, just in the hope of getting a flight in. People were sleeping on Doctor's Cave Beach, on Cornwall Beach. People were sleeping in their cars. That is the effect of Mr. Marley. And out of the blue came a guy named Yamas Grant, who said he had the rights to film Bob at Sunsplash. And he offered us a sizable payment for location rights, US dollars, which we took to the bank, this contract, and they gave us money. But as the time came closer, we heard less and less from Mr. Yamas, and it turned out that his whole thing had crashed. So we were on our own. The bank, having given us the money now, couldn't take it back. And so we went forward. But we had learned a lot more about production. Because of the 78, we were a little better at what we were doing in the 79. And the shows went really well. They didn't run on time, because that was going to be a nemesis for many years. Start late, end late.
Lots of feedback, lots of breaking down. but the thing is,
so changes.
Yeah, but the thing is, it was almost like a part of the festival in those days, because the kind of vibe and the energy on the field at Jared Park, a lot of people almost didn't mind.
Yeah,
some of the issues, you know.
The stars loved it.
Yeah, and so people waited on.
And you know what had happened, is that Sunsplash had become a reunion greeting place.
Yeah.
People who live in the States had come down, and cousins coming from Kingston and Montego. It has already started to gel as more than just a concerts. It was becoming a movement.
And a lot of tourists got a first-hand interaction with the Jamaican people.
Yes, and it was so
the average Jamaican.
Lasting.
Yeah.
We had marriages.
Yeah.
We had friendships that today are still around.
Yeah.
It proved to be, when we were forced to leave Montego Bay and we went out to Jam World, the main failure of Jam World was that the Portmore people, who could easily have sold out Sunsplash because of their density, they wanted to go to Montego Bay. They never want to stay at home.
Don't go to Jam World yet. Let's stay. Tell me some more about the Bob Marley year, 79.
Okay.
And then I want to go to 1980 because you had to make a move.
Yes.
But
yes.
Stay with 79.
Bob delivered. We Synergy spent the night in the building where we were selling tickets, sitting on a table with our feet against the wall, which was wooden, which was pulsing like it was going to come down. The amount of people that was there. We had people climbing over the walls. We had police firing gunshots in the air. We had people screaming, I have a ticket, don't shoot. But it finally settled down and became a really nice night. Bob did a nice 2-hour show, and everybody was...
Who else was on the show? If you can remember.
I don't remember who was on that night, but I know that was Friday night, and I know that Saturday night, Third World put down a show that I will never forget. It's almost like Bob had taken Friday, so let's go for Saturday. They went. It was fantastic, you know. Always Toots. I think we had Inner Circle again. But, you know, then it's these lineups kept, at this stage, I jumbled in my head. I really should have brought some literature so I could keep up with those things. It brought in sponsorship. Ting, which was just rising, was a substantial sponsor, which Ronnie Burke, who we are an ally for life, brought to the table. The hotels struggled to cope. What we realized is that Montego Bay had never seen 100% occupancy. They couldn't fix the beds before 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. There was water shortage. People were showering upstairs had to wait until downstairs finished. It was, the town was struggling to cope, you know, with services and supplies.
Yeah.
But everybody came awake to, boy, these guys were really right. This thing can really work. And then came 1980, when they declared
a state.
It was a election.
Yeah.
And it was so, you remember that? You remember that it's over 800 people were killed in
1980, yeah.
First time we ever saw anything like that. It was
Yeah.
like a 300 or something. And all the big countries said, forget Jamaica. Made no sense to go to Montego Bay with a tourist-oriented objective. And so tourist board said, look, we can't not do it. We have to establish continuity. So we said the compromise was going to be Ronnie Williams Center because there was no 5,000 capacity.
That was my first Sunsplash.
Yes?
Yeah.
You know, that Sunsplash brought to the stage acts that we had never had before. Peter Tosh for one. That
Peter
was the only
Tosh,
time he ever did Sunsplash.
Barrington Levy, a young Barrington Levy.
Young Barrington Levy.
Yeah.
Sugar Minot.
Sugar Minot.
Michigan and Smile.
Yes.
Colleen
Michigan and Smile.
Davis.
Yes.
Culture.
Yeah.
An amazing performance.
Amazing.
You know? I can laugh at the irony of the fact that the tourist board had seeded the project with $130,000 Jamaican. And of course it didn't make no money. And the end of the day, them said they want back their money. So you want back your money. You are the ones that tell us that we have to do it, and we all realize we're going into Joy Park, we're not going to make no money.
Yeah.
Them said no, we want our money. They took us to court. The judge threw out them, us. Anything you could find to throw out, he threw out. If a man go and sit down and work with the business, no waste of court time.
Yeah.
So we had a good laugh, and on we went. Come 81 now. Once again, we have not the first dollar. We're broke. We want to go back to Montego Bay. Government has changed. I have a good relationship with Babs Grange because she introduced me to Colleen Davis and we became quite good friends. And Babs was in the Ministry of Culture at the time. Forget what she was. Went to her and said, look, we want to do this festival. It has proven itself, but we don't have the money. We're looking to the government to give us some backing so we can go back down there. She said, okay, she would go to the Prime Minister, who flatly refused to have anything to do with it. And so we were adrift again. And then Bob died. And when Bob died, Babs went back to the Prime Minister and said, look, we could put on this festival we would hire Synergy to do all the production. And it would be a tribute to the life of Bob Marley. So he agreed on the condition that the negotiating was done by an American legal company that he had connections with. And they came down and they said, okay, they would do the cash flow required to do the show, but the government would take 90% and Synergy would get 10%. Mm. And they would pay us 45,000 Jamaican dollars to produce the event. We said, but look, we have sacrificed our time, our assets, almost our family to get the thing to this point. How can you tell us about 10%? We said, well, take it or leave it. And then Tom Finston came in. I don't know if he was a senator then, but he was a good friend of ours, and he said, look, go back to the Prime Minister. Tell him that you will take 20%. They will say yes, and they did. It is a bit of I wouldn't say it's a dispute, but we feel that we were never accounted to for the proceeds of Sunsplash 1981. We know that DNG put up the seed money as sponsorship. We know that Elektra Records made a sizable US advance to record it. And we have never really received any of that income. Nor have we ever got a real set of profit and loss to know what really happened there. So we went along, because, we the fanatics had our eye on. Synergy never ever concentrated on profit or making money. Mm. We were so gung-ho about the festival and the music, and we bringing people from Australia and England and Austria and Africa, and people coming in like crazy. That was what our kick was out of. Come 82 now, we said, you know what? We need a more equitable deal with the government. And so we went back to them and we said, look, let's work this thing out that we can split it 50-50. And Minister Bartlett said, no way. No. Tony suggested that we reverse the 80-20. Mm. We take 80, you take 20, we find the money. He said, no. The best we can do for you is 50-50. And my late, now deceased partner, looked the minister straight in his eye and said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take 100% and you don't get nothing. Straight up.
Yeah.
And he said to us, then there won't be a Sunsplash. And the following day, we got a call from the parish council cancelling our reservation of Jared Park. The same day, we got a call from DNG saying that unless we went to the minister, they would not be doing any sponsorship. Every door started to close. So, this being Jamaica, and me going to Jamaica College with Anthony Abrams, who was the minister,
okay.
I go to Anthony and say, watch me now. Here's what is happening. And he had a good laugh. And I never forget what he did. He called in Mr. Bartlett. He called in Tony King from the Tourist Board. And he said to them, do you know that if somebody brings one person to Jamaica, they're involved in tourism? And they said, yeah. He said, do you understand how many people these guys bring to Jamaica for their event? Silence. He said, okay, let me tell you how it's going to work. They are to be in the tourist board budget for support. They're not to come and ask for nothing. You to decide what you can afford, put it in the budget, and every year they're to get that. That turned out to be only 50,000 Jamaican dollars, but in a way it was a victory. He said they will get Jared Park, and I don't know about DNG, but there to be no blocking of synergy in the production of this festival here. And so we went back to work. We had some friends who helped us with money. And then the next thing we knew, there was a polio epidemic breakout. And Mr. Bartlett cancelled all independence celebrations. And so all eyes now turn to us. Those are the one talk program now, Mr. Tweet.
Public Eye.
Public Eye. And them cusses, and them cusses, and them cusses. But these guys were not interested in money. Here we have this health threat and crowds not to get together, and they continue to. But on the other side of the fence was a word from the Prime Minister saying, don't stop promoting, because if you cancel this event because of a polio epidemic, the winter season is dead. So we said, well, come out and say something. I said, no, man, just keep on doing what you're doing. So we had to fight through it and do it,